Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this public hearing on Monday, October 19th, 2020 to order. We have a number of people here in City Hall, and there's at least one person on the telephone, so I'll read out the statement. This council meeting is being convened in order to hold public hearings on land use matters. At the hearing, the public and anyone who believes their interest in property is affected may speak or present written submissions to council. Those of you who wish to speak should, after being recognized by the chair, begin by clearly stating your name and your address. If you have a written submission, please make this known at the beginning of your presentation. Everyone will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one should feel discouraged from making their views known. Any person who wishes to present a written submission to council may do so. The essence of the submission will be read out by the city clerk. All written submissions will be retained by the city clerk and form part of the record of the hearing. Each speaker may address the hearing a maximum of twice. The length of your first presentation will be limited to 10 minutes, providing your comments are relevant and the hearing is not being obstructed. Any additional presentation, which must be on new information, will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Members of council may ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the function of council members during a public hearing is to listen to the views of the public, not to debate the merits of the matters with citizens. Any debate by members of council will occur at the subsequent vote. The order of proceeding for each item will normally be as follows. Firstly, the city clerk will briefly describe the matter under consideration. Then the applicant or their agent will be invited to make a brief presentation of up to 10 minutes. Then the city clerk will identify any written submissions received. Oral submissions from the public will then be heard, and any further written submissions will be received. And finally, the hearing will be closed and matters may be considered. So please observe these rules. If you have any concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, please direct your comments to the chair. So Madam Clerk, the one item.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an application by Polygon Talisman Park Limited to create the residential limited commercial Capstan Village City Centre zone and rezone the respective area from single detached zone to the residential limited commercial Capstan Village City Centre zone. The location is for the following: 8671, 8731, 8771, 8831, 8851 Canby Road, 8791 Canby Road, 3600 Sexsmith Road, and 3480, 3500, 3520, 3540, 3560 Sexsmith Road. The applicant is Polygon Talisman Park Limited. And the purpose of this application is to create the residential limited commercial Capstan Village zone for the respective addresses from single detached zone to the residential limited commercial Capstan Village Centre zone, in order to permit the development of a mixed-use mid-rise and high-rise development with approximately 784 square meters commercial space, 1,226 dwelling units, including 150 affordable housing units and 65 market rental units, and a city-owned neighborhood park. First reading was on September 14th.
All right, is the applicant here this evening?
Yes, Your Worship.
Did you wish to make a presentation or just await questions?
I'll just await questions, thank you.
Okay. Any written submissions?
Worship, there are two on-table emails from Mr. John Rawson, Ms. Michelle Lee, and that are speaking to their concern with regards to the market rental housing component of this application.
All right. Now we have people here, some of whom may wish to speak. We have at least one person on the phone. I'm going to go to the people here, and then we'll go to the person on the phone. So who here wants to speak? Jim, so come on forward. So I think you know the rules. Introduce yourself, tell us about the situation. For a public hearing, you've got 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Just try to get this along for an overhead. Okay, that's good. And so it's Jim Wright, 8300 Osgood Drive in Richmond, Mayor Brody and councillors. Staff have been, and we're talking about, yes, there's only one item, so we're talking about the Polygon development. So staff have been extremely thorough with today's application. and they and Polygon have made progress towards saving trees. I'm familiar with the site. The northeast part of it, Area A, and you can see that here in the staff report, that has rare quality and it is much needed. It is a place where nature has reclaimed nature. It's really quite an unusual thing in Richmond. So we have a golden opportunity to empower nature to go further. And I can just move this. Right, so this is a satellite view, and this is the natural area. It is just naturally natural. And it's a corner of opportunity where nature has repurposed human intervention to actually bring itself back as seen from above. So we have a great chance to team with nature in empowering ways for a really big win for everybody. In contrast, it cannot be nearly as good if we take unnatural steps, like uprooting almost all of the mature trees and their ecosystem. It is not good enough to fool ourselves that sparing some hedgerow and the occasional tree and dotting the site with nursery saplings is a fine alternative. It is something, but not too great. I recently visited that natural area at Garden City Road and Cambie. Sharon McGugan and Yvonne Bell joined me there, and they showed me how they feel about this. So that's how they feel. I think it kind of speaks for itself. I took another photo from the vantage point of the Richmond and Sea Island United Church property on Cambie, which is right next to the natural area. And so I should turn this around. And I mean, I think that's pretty spectacular. And that's just what nature has managed to do on its own. Now we here are looking east. I'm trying to take you on a bit of a guided tour. So we're looking east, maybe a little bit northeast. If I had included more in the photo on the left side, which is the north, we would actually see a row of trees that are on the United Church grounds. So even though they're not part of Polygon, they're actually, of their property, they're actually contributing significantly to the natural area. So that's a real bonus. I'm going to try to get to the next page here. Okay. So the next photo is right diagonally across the natural area. So from looking northeast, we are now looking southwest from near Garden City Road. And we're looking actually at the towering hedgerow that is featured in the staff report. When I saw that in the report, I had no idea that it was looking at this hedgerow of actual large trees. And staff, along with Polygon, seem to wish to save as much of the hedgerow as they can. And so that's really commendable, especially, it's a very commendable start, because I'd like to save all of it. On the left side, which is the east side, you may see that the line formed by the hedgerow has zigzagged. It's sort of going south, and then it's going east. In the next photo, there's Sharon and Yvonne, and they're talking about mice, as it happens, in the tall grass. There's a lot of them, and the barn owls really like it because they can spot the mice, and so they really thrive there. So anyway, in this perspective, then, we're going southward toward Cambie, and that's basically it. So I caught up to Sharon and Yvonne, and for the next 3 photos, we were right in the natural area. So you can just get a feeling for it when you're actually inside that area. So that's 1 and 2 and quite something, eh? What a feeling. You're just so close to the roads, and yet it's so different. That's the 3rd one. And now we've got this panoramic kind of view. We're just a little into the natural area. We've gone on to Cambie, and then we've gone north just a little bit from Cambie, and we're looking north at this panorama. And at each stop, as I was taking these photos, I was just thinking how it can be a different and needed kind of natural area, where we experience how nature can restore itself. And especially if we give it a chance, and especially if we empower instead of obliterate. And fortunately, that natural area is located in Area A. And just sort of going back here, that's Area A. And it happens that Area A has much lower lot coverage than areas B and C, and also a lower height for the buildings. So the cost to the developer's floor area to enable the natural area to be retained and enhanced, while still high, is much less high where it is in Area A than it would be in the other areas. So now let's go back to the satellite view of the natural area. And now just sort of switch gears a bit and talk about Michael Odaine. So Michael Odaine is the 83-year-old chair and principal owner, maybe the sole owner, of Polygon. And he is also a philanthropist. A lot of Mr. Odaine's millions have come from Richmond Council in a perfectly reasonable way. Rezoning for much denser development had added many, many millions of dollars to his property values. And just switching back, thinking for a moment, I imagine that we would all like to enable that natural area to be spared from destruction and instead be empowered as city parkland. So now all we have to do is to get Mr. Odaine to agree. And if Mr. Odaine agrees, that will make a big difference because he is the chair and pretty much owns Polygon. And in that case, it would be an Odaine natural area. So I've changed the name of it from just natural area to Odaine natural area. It could be called that if you and he wouldn't mind. So I am asking you, Richmond's mayor and councillors, to hold off from approving this application at this time. I suggest that you might arrange to discuss the project with Michael Odaine and ask Michael Odaine to sponsor the retention and enhancement of the existing natural area that Polygon is on the verge of devastating. I'm finished.
Perfect. All right, Jim, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Oh, we have a question from Councillor Day. I take it that this question is for this delegation.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Wright, for the presentation. We unfortunately weren't able to see it on this end, but I have your email with all the pictures, so I was able to see it on my cell phone, just for your information. When you were walking around with the two ladies taking these pictures, that, to honest, it looks like Stanley Park. Could you imagine a way that the development could be built around those trees?
Well, it is possible to have development in an area that is, okay. Well, it is possible to have development in an area there that is along Garden City Road, and so you could have a building there, but to have buildings in there just defeats the idea. But this area that goes sort of halfway back along Garden City, that's the best that can be done. I should point out, though, that even though that's a big sacrifice, they can build there, and maybe they could even build higher, because that's only 25 meters height. And the people there are going to get fantastic views, because they're going to be looking out at these natural areas.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor, your hand is still up. All right.
That's because I wasn't finished talking. I had one more question.
All right, what is it?
Mr. Wright, so you've seen the development that's on our PH 76, which shows like really high condos on one end and then lower condos on the other end. Yeah. Do you think it would be better to go a little higher overall and concentrate the development in one particular area as opposed to spreading it out over the entire property?
Well, I think it could be good to have greater height, if that is possible, as one way to enable the natural area to stay natural.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, who else here would like to speak to us? Yes, ma'am. And just so I get a notion, who else is wanting to speak to this item? Okay, so we'll go to you next, and that will be it for here. And then we have one on the telephone.
My helper. No, I have some photos to show, but this is all new to me. Now, where am I touching? Sorry. Just there. Just there? Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Yep. Oh, I take off my mask. That's what was holding me back. My name is Sharon McGugan. I'm president of the Garden City Conservation Society and a lifelong resident of Richmond. I live at 7411 Ash Street. I have two main concerns about this polygon project. One is loss of habitat. Second, placement and size of the proposed park, city park. I will also speak to valuing of on-site trees, landscaping securities, and QEP recommendations. So photo one, we were in that natural area Jim's talking about. This is a huge tree. This is a very big tree. And I'm just leaving it on at the beginning because I have some photos that will contrast with that tree in a moment. Loss of habitat. We have lost 3 billion birds since the 1970s. These are not some exotic species that are out there somewhere. These are our backyard birds, like finches and sparrows. Their number one reason is habitat loss. We have a choice. Do we want to continue to be the problem, or will we be part of the solution? I'd like to think that we'll take action to remedy this significant loss for our future generations. Habitat loss is happening in every neighborhood. Mature trees and bird-friendly bushes have, for the most part, been replaced with sterile yards. Birds need food, shelter, water, and without those, they die. Our parks are, for the most part, designed for people. So if we remove bird habitat and don't, at the very least, replace it, we will keep losing our birds. The big question is how to mitigate ecological loss in neighborhoods. This project, in its current form, will not mitigate the loss. At present, the site is ecologically rich, filled with bird song and wildlife. If this project is carried out as planned, it will be a dead zone. Placement and size of the proposed city park. The area where the park is slated to be placed has no mature trees, only a hedgerow. It is an empty piece of land that will need new trees planted on. This doesn't make sense because right next to this area stands a forest. And if we are concerned with habitat loss, why don't we keep it? The park area as proposed is also small. I suggest a rethinking of how good habitat and mature trees could be retained, which would provide a real benefit to the wider community, which includes the natural world. The mature trees to the north of the original park plan could be retained with the purpose of creating a bird-friendly natural park. I know that Polygon has built many developments in Richmond. I'm sure that the company is aware of the ecological challenges Richmond, among other communities, faces. And I'm sure that given the right incentives, Polygon would want to step up to be part of the solution, to give back, ecologically speaking, to a community in which they have worked in for so long. Valuing of on-site trees. $750 is not enough money to charge for a tree, especially in this situation. Many of these trees are decades old. They're grandmother trees, like this tree on the screen. $750 would pay for a branch. If trees were given a proper valuation, what the tree is really worth when everything is factored in, more thought might be given about removing them. Instead, we would find more creative ways of working around trees. We are losing too many mature trees in many different ways, including mature tree unfriendly setbacks. More generous setbacks could also play a part in keeping trees. 1 year is not long enough. Currently, developers need to maintain, keep alive a tree for a year. This is not long enough. Our streets are filled with dead and dying trees. Developers, including Polygon, need to take full responsibility for the trees that they plant. And I have some examples to show. Yeah, I need help. I want the second one. Okay. When my neighborhood, this is from my neighborhood, when my neighborhood close to Pollock Park was redeveloped, I imagined leafy, tree-lined streets filled with birdsong. This has not happened. Photos show street trees. These photos are showing street trees on Heather Street between General Currie and Granville. So this is a tree that was planted in, this is Barrington Walk. It's a Polygon development. That tree was planted in 2006. It's not the only small tree on the boulevard. There are many. The boulevard is a disaster. Oh yeah, he's gonna come bail me out again. So this tree is across the street. This is a stretch from between General Currie and Granville Avenue. So the townhouse development directly across the street is called Wellington Court. It's also a polygon development. This tree, I'm pointing to the center. You might not see it that well, but this is how big the tree has grown. It was planted in, development was in 2004. And the center part is dead. You probably can't see it well enough, but it's dead. You know, I guess maybe slowly I'll learn this. Okay. That's also a tree in front of Wellington Court. The tree is undersized, as are many trees on the street. There's a lot of, I don't know what the species is, I think, but also I want to mention there's a lot of leaf curl, and I know that Lansdowne Street, we're losing, there's 8 trees that are being cut for a new development, and the arborist had mentioned leaf curl. I don't know if it's the same thing. I'm not an arborist, but these trees do not look very good. Yeah. I think he's hoping I'm going to eventually get it. I don't know how you're doing. Oh, I see, because I'm on the wrong side. Okay, so that's a picture of my husband and my dog, just for some variety, but this is also a small tree, and this is a third development in this area. This is an area of 2 blocks. This is Jasmine Gardens. It was built in 2005. Most of the trees are down Sills Avenue. This tree is also undersized, as are many on the street. Oh, you know. Sorry about my technology. Why can't I? Yeah, thank you. You're going to be up each time. Now we're on to Sills Avenue. That's what the street trees look like. There's 22 trees on the street. At least nine of them have heavy damage on their trunks. A couple more have light damage. All the trees they're dead or dying. 2 trees are missing, and this is not a replacement for bird-friendly trees. Yeah, see, I thought he was going to be doing this for me. I mean, he's going to be up for the whole time. Go back this way. That's another example of a dead tree. Can you click the next one? That's what the bark looks like on most of these trees. Everyone's looking to see if I can do it. No, I can't do it next. Now, in this area, that's at the end near Ash Street, and it looks like some trees have been removed from the boulevard, at least 2, and not replaced. And I just have 2 more. Sorry about my lack of technical skills. So that's another example of a dead tree. And last one, you may as well stay up there. This is my favorite. This tree has been leaning for several years. Anyways, I'm showing these photos because this is not acceptable that trees like this are put in. There was bird song, okay? There was bird song on this road before the redevelopment took place. I'll skip the qualified environmental professional and go to
You've run out
conclusion.
of time now.
Can I just say my last conclusion, 2 sentences?
Yep.
In conclusion, the best solution would be that Polygon, through a philanthropic gesture, gives back this owl hunting field, allows the forest to stand for a future generation, and builds a much smaller development with a nature-friendly and sustainability-focused mission. We all need to be part of the solution of ecological loss. Mayor Brody, the councillors, the citizens of Richmond, and the companies that work here. But if that fails to spark hearts instead of minds, the next option would be to make a much larger natural park that keeps mature trees instead of cutting them.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, the lady in the middle.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Bell. I live at 10431 Mortfield Road. I'm a lifelong resident of Richmond, and I'm not as eloquent as the first two speakers at all. I'm deeply concerned about the rezoning application in front of you, 2018-836123, from Polygon Talisman Park Limited, to develop the area within Canby Road, Sexsmith Road, Capstan Way, and Garden City Road. I grew up in this neighborhood, and although I've moved to the south of Richmond, I continue to attend Richmond United Church, which is right in the middle of this development proposal. And I am very troubled with the removal of 155 mature trees, huge trees, which is most of the trees that are on the whole site. Most of these trees are contained in the southeast of the proposal, which is along the corner of Canby and Garden City, and the rest are on Sexsmith Road, the west side of the proposal. These trees must be at least 80 years old and have been around since my mom grew up in this area. There are a few trees left this size and that are in a forest and a grove in Richmond anymore, and it's like a little mini Stanley Park where you least expect it, in North Richmond, right under the flight path. And I have to admit that going to a church that's under the flight path, has its challenges, even during COVID. The loud flying planes are so loud that they interfere with the sermon and praying. The saving grace for this church location are the open fields, tall trees, and view of the North Shore Mountains, although this is no longer, as the new developments now block our views and are closing in around us. Out the back with the Sunday school, we often see hawks hunting in the field behind the church, and many birds and many songbirds also in the surrounding trees through the year. And we've even seen coyote. So the last thing, I guess, I want to see is every single solitary tree except for the ones on the church property and a hedgerow and some of the trees that belong to the city. The last thing I guess I want to see are all those trees gone. And some of my thoughts when I read the report were again about the value of a tree. I don't understand how the city of Richmond comes up with $750 for a tree. It doesn't matter if it's 20, 40, 80, or 100 years old, it's still at $750. And that's the price for a pair of boots, a cheap pair of women's boots at Holt Renfrew. And now we're in the deep throes of climate change, and we're supposed to be keeping our old growth forests, plus planting trees. So I don't understand why the developer chose to, when you've got a whole area with no trees, but chose to remove the trees where they mostly are. This just doesn't make sense. And I feel very sorry for the people that would have to live here, to be squished into this small area with very minute trees, spindly trees, and a underneath the flight path at a very, I grew up under the flight path. It's not pleasant. It only makes it nice if you're able to see the mountains. And so I think this is a very poor choice, but it's all around there. There's been a lot of, well, you guys have put it through, a lot of development in that area right under the flight path. And so the other item I wanted to say was I felt quite worried about the report because on it, where the church property is, it says future development. And I don't know why it would say that. I don't know why staff has put future development right on the property of the church. Didn't feel very good, that's for sure. And also, I didn't think it was appropriate for to move for what was recommended by the city for the barn owls and the hawks that use the area is for the developer to put some owl houses at 3 different areas in a totally different part of the city. This doesn't make sense to me when you've got a beautiful area right there in the middle of the city. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to go to John Roston, who is with us by telephone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, John.
Good. John Roston, 12262 Ewan Avenue. Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking my call. Just a quick comment on the previous speakers that I think we would all like to see as much natural habitat as possible preserved. So if there is some way to save as many as possible of those magnificent trees and provide for bird habitat, I'm sure everybody would be very much in favor of that if there's any way of doing that. Moving on to our own group, my own group's submission. You have the written submission, so I'm not going to read that. I'm just going to sum up the 4 main points. The first one being that that as you know, there's a severe shortage of rental housing in downtown Richmond, where there's sufficient public transit and many people can walk to work. And to meet that demand, we really need a huge increase in the supply of market rental housing units. And as you probably know, only 26% of Richmond's housing units are rentals, compared to twice that figure in Vancouver, which has 53%. And as a number of you have said on different occasions, we need thousands of new rental units, not a few hundred scattered here and there in the downtown area. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is we need to minimize the operating costs involved in rental housing to keep rents down. And that requires economies of scale, which means joint management of entire buildings in the same location. When individual owners decide to rent out their strata units, operating costs are higher than they need to be, and therefore so are rents. On top of that, individual owners aren't able to respond as quickly to tenant needs. So there's a huge advantage to co-locating large market rental housing buildings. Point 3 is that there's a limited amount of land in downtown Richmond that can accommodate large purpose-built rental projects. And it is these very large projects that we are saying should be market rental. We haven't been intervening in the many smaller projects that are building strata units for sale. You've been spared our speaking on all of those. So this project is a very large project, and if you make it mostly strata units for sale to investors, the opportunity for purpose-built rental on that land disappears forever. However much of that land you decide to allocate for this project. And the fourth point comes up because a couple of councillors have said that developers will abandon projects if a large amount of market rental is required. And they may do exactly that for a short period of time, but no one's going to keep paying high taxes on vacant land for very long. Large projects are being proposed by experienced developers who have made millions building strata units in Richmond for sale to individual investors, as Mr. Wright just mentioned. It's more profitable than rental, so of course they want to keep doing that. However, they can still make a decent profit from building rental buildings and selling them to a large pension fund or real estate investment trust that needs stable long-term returns. And as we know, there's quite a number of very, very large such outfits with hundreds of millions available to invest in major rental housing projects. So the question is whether you see your role as maximizing the return to developers or ensuring that the land is used to meet the housing needs of Richmond's citizens. What we're asking is that you refer this proposal back with a request for a substantial number of market rental units. And that doesn't mean that they come back proposing 100 units instead of the current 65. We have suggested 80% market rental or 860 units. It has to be a substantial number to send the clear message that you're going to be serious about market rental in very large development proposals in the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. And so I think that completes the submissions from the floor, but people can come back with a 3-minute submission based on new information. I want to go first of all to staff and ask a few questions, and then we're going to go to the applicant, and I'm sure there's items that he wants to address. So staff, are you there? Wayne?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, so I don't know whether it's you or someone else, but there were a number of questions that arose there. They talk about this value of $750 per tree. Where did that come from?
Through Your Worship, $750 is what it costs the city to plant a tree. So that is where the $750 comes from. With respect to this project, we are taking a security of $750 for replacement planting. Through the development permit, though, we would actually increase that bond to the amount based on the actual cost to plant all the landscaping identified in the development permit. So the $750 referenced in the staff report is a placeholder. That amount would be increased when a final landscape plan is developed for the project should it proceed.
What about the proximity to the flight path? Comment was made about that.
Through Your Worship, the site is in close proximity to the flight path. It is designated for residential use in the city's official community plan and the city center area plan. As part of the approval process, they will be required to provide acoustical reports to demonstrate that the project can achieve the CMHC interior noise standards with respect to mitigation of the aircraft noise.
Reference was made to the church site being designated for future development. Do you know where that is and what that's about?
Through Your Worship, the church site located directly to the west of the subject development is identified for residential development in the official community plan. That's where the reference to future development comes from. In terms of the church itself, as with any property, they can continue to occupy the site and use it in accordance with the current zoning for as long as they wish. The city's OCP identifies what the future use of the site would be.
All right, so right now it's what, assembly?
Yes.
Okay, and these are just kind of random questions that occurred to me as I was listening to the various delegations. But reference has been made by Mr. Ralston, and we got some other materials on it, about the numbers for rental housing. Can you comment on that?
Yes, through your worship, the city's current policies do not have any requirement for market rental to be included in residential developments. The city's focus to date has been on the provision of affordable rental housing. The project does comply with the city's affordable housing policy in providing 10% of the residential floor area as affordable housing units, approximately 150. In 2018, as part of the city's market rental policy, council did introduce or adopt an incentive-based approach for market rental. That market rental policy approach includes the provision of additional density exclusively for the provision of market rental housing. This project is taking full advantage of those policies and is being provided with a 0.1 FAR density bonus, and that entire density bonus is used exclusively for market rental housing.
All right. All right, I don't see any other hands now. There's probably going to be more questions, so we'll come back to you. Councillor Green, you've got a question of staff?
Yeah, I've got a question of staff.
Go ahead.
There's been reference to making the buildings taller to have a smaller footprint, but I'm just looking at page 81. It looks like we're really close to the maximum building height. Is that the building height that's permitted in the area plan, or is that because of the flight path?
Through your worship to Councillor Green, that is because of the height identified in the city centre area plan. The site is located quite far from the actual approaches where building height would not be a limiting factor.
Okay, so there is flexibility there if we decide to go there. It's not restricted by the airport operations.
Through your worship to Councillor Green, generally speaking, yes, that is correct. I would, however, point out that one of the founding principles within the city centre area plan is a transitioning of heights and densities as you get farther away from the core. There are specific buildings within this project which are identified for height above the typical max.
So can we look at additional market rentals? Because we looked at that at Richmond Centre Development. We ended up with 10% market rentals. Can we get to that figure with this property in this development?
Through your worship to Councillor Green, the proposal before you would not make that allowance. We have had a discussion with the developer recently in response to the inquiries submitted to council for the public hearing about increasing the provision of rental housing. That would not be possible at this point without referring the project back to staff.
Okay, and then just finally, you know, I do find it really discouraging that we're targeting very mature trees. This really makes me feel like the Richmond Centre development where we're cutting down all those giant trees on the boulevard on Minaroo because we can't just move some things around on the lot. So I'd just really like to see a little bit more creativity on the building placement because I'm sure that we can get a solution here. I'm sure it's available. Anyway, those are all my questions right now.
All right, so I'll go to the applicant. So if you want to come down and join us, introduce yourself and tell us about the situation. Councillor Green, your hand is still up.
Thank you. My name is Robin Glover with Polygon Homes. Appreciate the comments that we've heard here this evening. Very thoughtful dialogue. A few points, and then I'd be happy to take your questions. As you all know, one of the challenges of developing in the city of Richmond is the preload required to deal with the geotechnical, with the soils here in Richmond. That requires preload, which tree roots they don't like. They're not supportive of tree roots. The second item is that, as you know, Richmond is in a floodplain, so there are minimum heights for habitable floor areas within the city of Richmond. That means raising grade. Much of this existing site at Talisman Park is below the adjacent road grades. So Garden City, Canby, Sexsmith, Capstan are all higher than Talisman Park. So practically speaking, that means raising grade to accommodate the minimum floodplain level for habitable use within the city of Richmond. So that's just part of the challenge of developing within the city. What I did here with respect to existing trees, the proposal for the Central Park location is doing a couple of things. It's locating it in the center of the future community. It's allowing the future developments, should the church choose to move forward with redevelopment, should the remainder of the block wish to move forward with redevelopment, it would allow consolidation of that Central Park to deliver one generous 2.5 acre Central Park space. Working with staff, with parks in particular, the design of that park space is unlike other park spaces in the immediate area. So Aberdeen Park, for example, which is something that the city partnered with Polygon on with our Avanti project, it's a very urban park. It's sort of hardscape, more basketball, skateboarding, that kind of thing. The vision with staff for this park here at Talisman Park is very green. It's lush. It's supposed to be the future lungs of the community. So you'll notice not just typical replanted trees, but there are some large specimen trees planted within the area. It's not just a simple flat landscape. There is undulating landscape with some hills to create some enclosure, to create some of that space and that feeling that I heard one of the other speakers speak to this evening. With respect to tree maintenance within the city of Richmond, appreciate the photographs that were shown this evening of trees that were on the smaller side for sure. I'm sure, as you all know, the process within the city of Richmond is a developer would plant trees. Their landscape architect and the city staff would then review those trees, would sign off on those trees. Those trees and the remainder of the landscape would then enter a 1-year maintenance program. At the end of that 1-year maintenance program, again, the developer's landscape architect, the city staff would review that landscape. If there are deficiencies, then the developer would be obligated to return to the site and rectify those deficiencies. So if there's dead plant material, if there's undersized plant material, it would be handled at that time. Once those deficiencies have been addressed, landscape is then either handed over to the strata for management, or if they are off-site trees, if they're city trees, then it's handed off to the city for maintenance. So just a bit of context for some of the photos that you saw here today. Two other items with respect to rental housing. So appreciate that affordable housing is sort of at the top of everyone's minds these days. We are delivering a total of, contemplated to deliver a total of 1,226 homes at Talisman Park. Staff have conveyed that 150 of those are affordable housing units. So we've been working with Success. I believe there's a letter in your package with their support and the collaboration that we've done with them to date. We also have an additional 65 market rental units that Mr. Craig has commented on, and those are consolidated in a single building, and the affordable housing units are also consolidated in a single building. Polygon has a history of delivering all kinds of affordable housing units in Richmond in various configurations at our Trafalgar Square, Barclay, Fiorella projects that are close by. We've delivered them dispersed throughout a development. We've also done projects like Kiwanis, close by here, where we have done a standalone dedicated rental facility. So we are flexible. We can do both. However, in this instance at Talisman, because the entire build-out could take as much as 10 years to complete, we made it a goal to deliver all the affordable housing units and all the market rental building units in phase 1 of the project. So front-loading them, get them out into the marketplace sooner rather than later. A note about market rental. So it's true that the market rental building here would be in perpetuity market rental. We would enter into agreements with the city in that respect. But it's worth noting that our adjacent projects within the city of Richmond, so for example, Avanti, again, Trafalgar Square, Alexandra Court, we've reviewed with our project management groups who are property managers of those particular developments. And typically the rental rate in those communities is about 40%. So whether those are investors purchasing and renting their units out, at any one time there's roughly 40% of the homes that are available in the rental pool. So putting that in the context of Talisman Park, that would mean a total of 619 rental homes within the entire development. That would be the affordable housing units at 150 to 65 market rental, plus an additional 404 units at that 40% rate. So 619 of 1226 is a 50% market rental rate. So it's often a piece of the rental puzzle that gets forgotten. So I just wanted to include that. And then my final point was Councillor Green made a comment or was questioning staff regarding height. And what I can say, we have an adjacent project called Fiorella, which we were granted building permit on a couple of months ago. It's under construction. It is immediately adjacent to this development at Sexsmith and Brown Road. It's a 13-story Richmond tower, and we barely were able to get YVR and Transport Canada approval to construct a building of that height. So, and the issue with that is all around the third runway for YVR. So it's a new constraint. We didn't have it at our Avanti project, which is again further west of Fiorella, but it is a very real height cap that we are dealing with right now on an adjacent project. Thank you.
So does that mean the idea of adding height is just out, or it's limited?
It's just out. We would love to be able to build higher, but it is a real cap by Transport Canada and YVR.
And if it weren't?
If it weren't, we would welcome going higher.
The other thing from my point of view is the suggestions by the delegations that Polygon could see its way to having this natural area and dedicating more land for park, et cetera, et cetera. Can you comment on that?
I guess speaking to my earlier comments that the location of the park that is before you is intended as a central green space that not only benefits Polygon, obviously, but future developments in the immediate area. So it is a central park that can grow. We have, with our best efforts, working with parks and staff, tried to retain as many mature trees as we can. But part of the reality, as I said, of developing in Richmond are to do with soil conditions, pre-loading, and floodplain levels.
Okay, I'm sure there's going to be more questions about that one. We'll go to Councillor Day.
Very much, Mayor Brody, and thank you to the delegate for coming forward. So you were there, you saw the pictures of what it looks like now. You're well aware of the mature trees that are on that location. I'm puzzled why you would put the park where the trees aren't. Can you explain why you couldn't relocate the park and maintain the really significant 100-year-old trees?
Sure. There are a number of constraints. So I already spoke to floodplain levels, geotechnical conditions. There are also things like site surfacing, bike paths. So there is significant land area dedicated for bike infrastructure and those other infrastructures that do erode that existing area as well.
Okay, my next question, I'm not satisfied that the park's in the right place, I'm sorry to say. I mean, those pictures, you saw them, it's like looking at Stanley Park, you know, it seems to me it would raise the value of the properties if the park was where technically it should be, if you ask me. But the other question I have is about rentals. We know that there are huge, investment companies, mutual fund companies, unions that are looking to buy or properties that are like, 60, 70, 80% rental, because then it's just steady income for like 50 years. Have you looked into harnessing that market?
Absolutely, yes. Polygon is not in the business of providing or managing market rental ourselves. So we would be selling and turning over the market rental building to another organization to manage it. Now, to one of the previous delegates' comments, one size does not necessarily fit all for a rental building. So through our work with Success, for example, there is a sweet spot that we understand for various organizations. So someone like Success may be willing to take on 150 units, whereas someone else like Kiwanis may be interested in many fewer units. The YWCA may be interested in many more units. So it's the delegate's comment about the efficiency of scale. It is a great one, but there are other factors involved in that decision as well.
I think you might have missed the point I was trying to make. I'm not talking about nonprofits. I'm talking about for-profit, union investments, that type of thing, mutual fund investments that would take over. I mean, they're going to buy it lock, stock, and barrel from you and then have an income for the next, 40 or 50 years, depending on how long the condo, remains in good order. So searching out that market, because we know that many companies and investment portfolios are looking for that. So if you did that, you would benefit, one, the purchaser, who would now have a great income for their union members or whoever they are, teachers, and on top of that, you would have a real benefit to the community, which would be far, far more rentals. As has been pointed out, I mean, I was checked today, and the vacancy rate in Richmond is 0.5 of 1%.
Okay, let's get an answer to that.
Sure, yeah, short answer to your question, Councillor Day, is that yes, we have been speaking with those organizations, and I think part of what's attractive about the market rental that we're delivering is that it is in a standalone single facility with its own amenity, so it is very easy for a large organization to manage and keep their overhead under control.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Just one other question. There's a complex on 57th Avenue and Gravel Avenue in Vancouver called Shannon Muse and Apartments. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Where the mansion is?
Yes.
Yeah. That area was redeveloped not that long ago. And what they did was they maintained the existing big trees, especially around the outside. And they maintained the gardens. And, I mean, it's spectacular. You have an opportunity to do something of that caliber in this location. Have you thought about, taking advantage of what's already there in terms of the natural beauty?
Yes, we have. I mean, Granville, the Shannon Muse project is a beautiful project, no question. Yeah. It does have different constraints than we have, but yes, we have considered that.
Okay, Councillor Day, your hand is still up. All right, thank you then. Don't go too far because there could be some more questions. obviously. Now, we'll excuse you now. So the speakers who have spoken can come back for a maximum of 3 minutes. But I stress it has to be on something new, not a rehash of the very interesting points that have already been made. So Jim, did you want to come back? Sharon? Okay, have a seat. But it's got to be new.
There's no slides this time. I just wanted to mention that I walked around Aberdeen Park recently, and I noticed that quite a number of the trees were in poor condition. One tree was dead and had fallen over. So my point is that there's nothing to replace good, mature trees with a lot of these trees that are being planted, and they're not. We have dead and dying trees throughout Richmond. My second point is about I don't think it's fair that the city of Richmond has to go, in order to get new trees on Sills Avenue, that's one full block, it's 22 trees. It's not fair. The city of Richmond has to go in and then replace all those trees. The development's only 15 years old.
We are not talking about Sills Avenue.
Yeah, I know. But
We're not talking about the Aberdeen Park either.
I was talking about trees in the Aberdeen
realize.
Park. And the third thing I wanted to say was that the park concept, when I looked at it in the plans on this new Polygon site, was I noticed that there's a pathway coming into it, which sounds friendly to the rest of Richmond. I'm assuming that this park is available to all of the residents of Richmond. But when I look at the actual plan, the way that the buildings are grouped around it, and there's just a central core, it doesn't feel that way to me. It feels unfriendly.
Ma'am, did you wish to have a minute, a couple of minutes?
One comment to make that my mom wanted, she can't, was that the children, the kids that are in this complex, and I guess she's thinking of them and where would the trees be for them? Because they're definitely, everyone here knows that lots of times they do not grow well at all. So it's still a big concern where these kids are going to play in this circular park right in the middle where there are no trees right now. And where you would have some more trees on the corner. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll ask John Roston if you have anything more of a new variety.
Just one point to make, if you can hear me.
We can, yes.
And that's just a reminder that, of course, council has the power to designate all or parts of any property as market rental tenure. So it's back to you. You have the power to do whatever you want to do. Thanks.
All right. That finishes off the speakers list. So we'll ask for council consideration on second and third reading of zoning bylaw 8500 amendment bylaw 10198. So that's moved and seconded. Discussion? Okay, we got Councillor Green.
Thank you. I'd like to refer it back to staff to figure out how we can more optimally configure the buildings and or roads in a way that maintains more of the mature trees, and also to increase the amount of market rentals. It's only 6% market rentals, whereas we asked for 10% in Richmond Centre. They're both very big developments. I think that it would be fair for us to expect more market rentals out of a development this big. So I'd like to refer it back to staff.
Okay, I just want to clarify your referral, because it may be limiting it to talk about buildings and roads. Just refer it back to better use the mature trees. Secondly, to provide for more market rentals. Okay?
Correct.
Okay, so that's moved. Is it seconded? Okay, so it's moved and it's seconded by Councillor Au. Now, I've got a speakers list. That's a referral motion. Okay, that's what we're on now, is the referral motion, not the main motion which was made previously. So, Councillor Day, on the referral.
Yeah, I'll be supporting the referral because I'm also disappointed that there isn't more rentals. And when you're looking at over 1 million square feet and 1,220, I think it is, units, surely we can do better than 65 market rentals and 150 affordable. I just believe this is too big of a project. You know, this development isn't just an apartment building. It's a city that's going to be built in the middle of the city. And I think we need to get it right. And as I'm looking at PH 92 and looking at the skyline of this complex, you know, the tallest buildings are 147 feet tall. So maybe we could densify the buildings and allow for more green space. Because, you know, to be honest, until I saw the photos supplied by the delegations, I didn't realize that it's basically a park over there. And I think it will, you know, be a good referral back because if this is marketed properly, and I had sent you all shannonmuse.com as an example of a really good redevelopment at 57th and Granville in Vancouver, where they not only densified, but they also saved a lot of the natural landscape and the natural original mature trees. And you know, from a marketing perspective, you're going to make a lot more money if you do it right. So rather than just create, you know, 1,200 units for private investors and speculators and foreign buyers, why don't we create homes for people that will live there for the rest of their lives and enjoy the nature and enjoy, you know, what we can do. So I'll be happily supporting the referral back. I would like to see more rentals. I would like to see more natural landscape. And I absolutely would like to see the park relocated to where the trees are now. That just seems common sense to me. So thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few items to say. I'll speak to the referral. I do support the referral, and many reasons. I previously spoke at the September 14th meeting when we had first reading for this, and I was opposed to it at the time. So first off, I'm very well connected to this area and very familiar with the grove of trees that were showcased in the photos earlier. We're very fortunate to have concerned residents who were able to take time out of their day to capture this, to share it with us, so I'm very thankful for that. The reminder of a time when I was walking every day to school from my home to the old Cambie Junior High, which was just to the west of this area, and I'd walk this area to and from school. Looking at the report and the revisions, I guess, and the little table that talks about the additional trees along the property line that could be saved. That's the table on page PH4. It boils down to 155 mature trees being removed. That's not something that any city council in 2020 should be willing to accept for what we're getting for that, which is demonstrated in the pictures of the bent over, fallen, dying trees that we got to see there. There's a number of other polygon developments I could speak to. There's one called Hennessy Green. I can walk the site and I can talk about all the trees that used to be there after the development was originally built and how the landscapers haven't kept up with the licensing agreement. Also one just down the road from there called Wishing Tree, where the polygon development saved one tree and named the whole development around that food. And unfortunately, they didn't name it after all the stuff that was lost and forgotten. Like was mentioned by the speaker on the area around Ash Street, where the birds used to be heard. On Audlin Road and Alexandra Road, I grew up hearing the birds and watching the polygon developments go in, replacing them. And really all that's left now are urban pest species that devour anything you try and grow outdoors because they have nowhere to go, because the developments compact the ground, like was mentioned by the developer representative. That compaction, preload, doesn't go well with tree roots, and yes, that is the case. And that's also why those pitiful trees look so shabby in the pictures, is they're in preloaded ground that will never give rise to the trees that we were able to see by our residents who provided them today. The habitat for birds of prey, that's in decline. It's not just the trees, but it's actually the open field, the grass field. It's one of the refreshing parts of driving along or cycling along Garden City Road. It actually makes you feel like the street name matches the area, because very few other places on Garden City Road do that. I'll just very briefly touch on the fact that the affordable housing and the market rental percentages and overall numbers are disappointing at the time that we're in, when that's clearly where demand is, but we're not seeing a match from the development community. Looking into a few other things that were spoken on, or that I've communicated with others in the neighborhood. So that the park space, it's nice that there's that one image that talks about a hedgerow that might be protected, but you look at the overview of how the park's going to be oriented, and very unlikely any of that green labeled hedgerow will be able to survive. Again, preload does not go well with tree roots. And looking into that park space and location, like it was mentioned by the delegate there, that's clearly the idea is to put it in a place where the new residents will enjoy and have access, but everyone else will be. And clearly there is space where that what was called the Odaine natural area from Mr. Wright's presentation would be an ideal candidate for an additional park space on the site. So I wouldn't recommend moving the one park to another place, but adding in the natural area. And what a legacy that would be if Polygon were able to talk to Mr. Odaine about that option. No matter what happens here tonight, that would still be a gesture that I'm sure City Council would be pleased to hear. Another reason why this should be referred back is we're still waiting on the staff referral about tree protection on private property. Clearly, if we had that referral back at this time, there would be a different negotiation around how trees get protected. So clearly there should be no way that we would approve 155 trees to be removed from a site like this when we're probably, weeks or months away from that referral coming back, hopefully coming back. And then I guess just in closing, we've had 46 projects from Polygon, and I'm sure there's many more in the works right now. I'm not saying that it's all on a single developer.
We're on the referral. We're on the referral.
Yes, and the referral is necessary because we have a development process that has these faults where landscaping agreements, for example, don't get retained. And finally, for the referral, I think the CEEP, or the Community Energy and Emissions Plan for the city, one of the directives of it is green infrastructure. And in that, what the survey respondents who spent the last few years providing a public consultation for it, the number one thing that they want the city of Richmond to protect and invest in, number one thing, natural landscapes like forests. And we have the opportunity now. Getting a referral today would be a success towards that. It would also help to lead us to how to properly define green infrastructure, because to date, what is out there is just in decline. There has not been any long-term commitment to allow the GHG reduction features of our natural landscape to persist. And that is mentioned in this document as well. So it can't just be a temporary thing. It has to be long-term. So the definitely solutions are out there, and I'm inspired by the residents who came out today to share a sight of what could be. Thank you very much.
Councillor McNulty.
Yes.
On the referral.
Thank you, Worship. Well, it looks like the discussion is to refer it back, but it begs a number of questions, Your Worship, that I want to bring out tonight. If it's referred, would it be for 1 month to have it come back at the next public hearing?
No, it'd be referred back, and it'll come back through planning, well, I guess through GP at these days, but generally it would come back through planning committee, council, and back to public hearing.
Well, I think it gives us an opportunity to look at a number of issues, and I would suggest we, given what I've heard tonight, that if it's referred, then we bring it back at the next public hearing. I don't think that these things need months and months to answer them. They're pretty simple. I would ask, Your Worship, that staff come back with a formal policy for market rental. I think it begs the question, just because we give an incentive base of 0.1, I brought in the LMR with 5% and they increased to 10 when we brought that in. That came with Raman Cooner with his stuff, and we got that in. And if we're going to do it, this gives us an opportunity. My question would be, on the market rental, why could we not go up a number of floors? For 65 units, you're not going to have many floors. It's going to be a small building. So I think that there is an opportunity to bring it up and increase that in that area. In the referral, I was very disturbed to hear that YVR is limiting because of the third runway. Did we not have discussions about if they were not contemplating a third runway for 40 years? Or did I go to sleep at that meeting? That really bothers me when a developer has said and saying it's capped. It begs some concern for us at council and our relationship with YVR. So there is the opportunity. I'm not going to make a big speech. I think a lot of people have brought out a lot of things. Obviously, it appears it is going to be referred back. So I think we need to use this opportunity to get some things that we need. One, a policy for
Bill, we've heard this.
Market rental. So let's see how it goes. I think it will be a 4-4 split or whatever. So I think there's some answers that we need, but I don't want to see it delayed for months and months because there's no reason to do that. We can get many of these answers within the next 4 weeks, or even have a special public hearing for this. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Wayne, do you want to comment on the timing? It sounds like 1 month is awfully challenging for what you're talking about.
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, in terms of a referral, if the referral was to encompass potentially relocating the park, changing the amount of rental housing provided in the project, I don't think it would be possible to do that within a month. It would require rejigging of the site plan potentially, and possibly changing the building forms in response.
All right. Bill, your hand is still up.
Sorry.
And before we got a couple more speakers, but I think we should add the park location to the referral specifically. All right, Councillor Rao.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. I think I have to thank the delegations. I think you did a very good job. Although I supported to bring forward this project to public hearing, I came to this meeting with an open mind, and I have to say that you guys made a very good presentation, and it helps me to understand the whole project in a better way. And I think many important questions were being raised. And for example, the value of mature trees should be reassessed. I think just $750 for a tree, I think is too little. So I think we have to look at the value of the mature trees. And also the merits of keeping natural landscape is very important to me as well. I think this cannot be replaced by man-made parks. And also when I look at PH 72, I look at the whole area, and it's very obvious to me that all the surroundings are well developed. And it's even more important for us to keep the natural landscape for the purpose of the whole area. So for all these reasons, I think we should refer this back to staff to have another look and address many of the questions that are being raised.
Okay, Councillor McPhail, and your hand's still up, Chuck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really don't support referral at this time. This project has been in the works, probably my guess is a couple of years. It's been through general purposes. It passed 8-1. It went through council 7-2. And while the delegations have brought up some really important issues, like I have a couple of questions now of staff, has the landscape plan been finalized? Has the park planning process been finalized? I think there's still opportunity to add some upgrades that might meet some of the needs expressed tonight.
Through your worship to Councillor Farrell, in terms of the landscape plan, no, we do not have a final landscape plan for the development. That would be provided at the development permit stage. In terms of the park plan, in keeping with standard practice, once the rezoning is approved, which would identify the park location, the next step in the process would be a planning report from Parks Planning with a vision for what the park would be and a design for the park.
And that would include public consultation and neighborhood area and all that?
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, I'd refer that question to Alex Kernicki, as the park planner for the project.
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, certainly public consultation could be part of the process with the surrounding community. The one small challenge we would identify for council would be that the immediate community that the park is being delivered for does not live there yet. So, but that said, certainly the surrounding community beyond Polygon, the future Polygon Talisman's development could be consulted and made part of the process.
Thank you. And just to conclude, I do support Councillor McNulty's idea of looking at a market upgrading or updating our market rental policy. We have a policy in place. It's embedded in the official community plan. This applicant has complied with everything that we've asked for. I think we have the opportunity, we're looking at the OCP probably starting next year and the initial phases of that, if we're going to embed it again in the OCP, to look at it there or make a referral to look at it before that. Thank you.
Councillor McPhail, so if you want to do that, I suggest we vote on the referral first, and then if you want a further referral to look at a market rental plan, we can consider that as well.
I do.
Councillor McNulty, your hand is still up.
Yeah, I was going to ask to, after this vote takes place for the policy.
No, I'm not going to you. I'm telling you your hand's still up. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor McPhail. I don't think this should be sent back to referral at this point. I think this applicant's gone through all the steps that they're supposed to. I think we need to have a process that's transparent. I'm not sure how a developer is supposed to get financing to build if we keep making the timeline ever longer. If they've already been in planning for 3 years, they did exactly what our staff asked them. Staff told them where to put the park. I dare say if this developer had been told in the first place they could just leave all those bushes and trees in the corner and call that a park, they would have been delighted to leave it alone, not do anything, and call it a day. They would have, I can only imagine that they'd be happy with that. I'm not convinced that that the park, that space, the way it is right now, would provide enough security as a park space. If I was living next to it, I think I might be a little bit concerned having my kids play there, but maybe it would be fun and it would be more like it was in the olden days. But I don't see it, people considering that a safe place to let their kids play. We've been told that this is a 10-year project, and they're moving the affordable housing and the rentals to the front of this. If we send this to referral, it can conceivably put this back a year and a half before it comes back. We know that the Lansdowne project was supposed to come before us a year ago. We still haven't seen it. We haven't started looking at it yet. So it could conceivably push it back a year, which pushes those market and affordable housing units 1 year further back from when they'll possibly be done. I like trees as much as anyone. I had a beautiful dogwood in front of my house, and it's diseased now. It's almost 50 years old, and the trees in Richmond don't really have as long of a lifespan as they do in other places. And it's wonderful that at Shannon Muse they were able to save a lot of those trees. And it's also nice that they have rental rates of $2,500 a month for 541 square feet. So if you want to live in a box with some nice trees in town, you can do that. I think we're trying to create a community here, and I think our market rental rates here in Richmond are going to reflect that, especially if we can get the project going and actually get the shovels in the ground. Nobody can move in until it's built. So it's all very good and well to say that we're demanding this, but if we keep talking about it and never actually gets built, and we don't actually create a platform that anyone can make any plans around, people aren't going to be building here in Richmond. And we want them to build in Richmond. We have it in our community plan that we want a certain amount of growth in order to provide a certain amount of housing for certain people in our community. So we also have an opportunity in the upgrading of in the renewal of our OCP to change those rules as we see fit. Thank you.
All right, Councillor McNulty, did you have something more on the referral? You're muted there. Okay, I'm gonna. Go ahead. Oops.
I'd like to make a formal referral to the staff.
No.
For formal policy
back.
of market rental.
Yeah, we're coming back to you on that. That was
Okay,
also
come back to me on it. Thank you.
Well, I'm coming back actually to Councillor McPhail who proposed that. But in any case, the items that I have for referral on the mature trees, use of more of them and the value of them, more market rentals, and the park location. Those are the items that I have for the referral that's on the floor. So I'm going to call the question on it. All those in favor? Those opposed? It is carried with Councillors McPhail and Liu opposed. And I'll come back to Councillor McPhail. You wanted to make a referral motion on the market rental plan?
Yes, Your Worship. It was actually, I was agreeing with Councilor McNulty. He did bring it up first.
We'll give it to both of you. How's that?
Yes, refer back to staff to bring back some suggestions for a market rental policy, either to be done in the review of the OCP or an alternate plan to look at a policy.
Well, it'd be suggestions and options.
Thank you.
Market rental plan. All right, so that's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor McNulty, you had something to say?
Yeah, I'd like to see it as a plan, the plan that it coincides and parallels what we already have with LMR. Okay, so that we have a formal plan and come back as soon as possible, not necessarily be based on FAR.
Well,
there is a requirement.
The staff is going to come back to us with suggestions and options, and I'm sure that'll be there. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So that is carried. I think that does us. Someone move adjournment?
Move adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, we're now adjourned. Thanks, guys.